Hey guys, Cam here from TodaysiPhone.com, and this week on TiP we have featured quite a variety of stories. So I picked out some of the interesting ones and some of the ones that I wanted to provoke discussion, I guess. We've had the relaunch of the iPad 4, we've had rumours about the next generation Apple TV, we've also seen some rather scathing reviews of a book called Haunted Empire by a writer basically saying Apple is doomed, and we've seen Motorola smartwatch be announced. The Moto 360 is one of the coolest looking things in the world. And also I was at CU Exposed on Thursday checking out some accessories and getting some hands on with those. Don't mention the beard. First off, let's talk about this Haunted Empire book. I wrote an editorial, so I won't go through everything that I said right now. Apple's doing well. But because it hasn't released a breakthrough product in the last 4 years, people think it's lost its edge. So I just wanted to remind people that it took 6 years between the original iPod and the iPhone, and that actually the 3-year period between the iPhone and the iPad may have seemed quite short and fast, and it was, but that's because the iPhone and the iPad are essentially the same thing, and the iPhone was actually born out of the early development of the iPad in the first place, so it may have seemed like a short time, but actually they'd been working on the iPad for longer than they were working on the iPhone, if that makes sense. But go read that. Apple's not in trouble, but it's an interesting read, and there's some links to some other stories as well that you might want to check out within the article. I think Motorola announced what I want to be the iWatch, which is really weird because it's Android. I'm a bit conflicted because it uses Google now, which I think is awesome. It's got a circle screen and it just looks... Remember that concept that we saw a few weeks ago with the big round face and the leather strap, and it just looked really cool? A proper timeless classic design, but with a really smart screen. That's essentially what the Moto 360 is, and it looks really cool, and it's going to be available this summer, apparently. Thinking, well, if Motorola's doing that, what can Apple possibly do to release something that I want to buy more than this? Because at the moment, it's the only thing I want. I just want it. As soon as it's available, I'll be clicking the button that says pre-order. Unless it's available and it costs like an arm and a leg. Or maybe lots and lots of money. Now on to the Apple TV, and what's really interesting for me about the Apple TV is that it's slowly become a really popular product. Ever since it launched years and years and years ago, and then they redesigned it to the small black plastic box that costs only $100, £100 in the UK. And you can do all sorts of cool stuff with it. Obviously you can mirror from your iPad or your iPhone, or stream stuff from your iPad or iPhone to the TV. But it's also got its own channels, and you can watch any videos or listen to any music that you have paid for on iTunes. Watching Netflix, the news, all sorts of stuff. It's really, really cool, and it is easily the best £100 I ever spent, ever. The fact is that because it's becoming so popular, then there's obviously going to be another one at some point soon, and the rumours this week were saying that it's going to be within some point in the next few weeks, and that actually it's going to be very games focused, and you'll see that maybe Apple's going to release some sort of app store where you can use games, or maybe it'll use the same app store that iOS uses, and they just have to make universal apps compatible with the TV as well. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I don't know, and I would like to see it, and I think it's something that we thought was going to happen for a long time, but still hasn't quite happened. And it's almost like it's Apple's own very sneaky way of entering the games console market without creating a games console. And it only costs $100. And you think if you can create some really fun and addictive games that are about 1/10 of the price of the stuff you have to buy on PS4 and Xbox 360 or Xbox One, then it's going to be a no-brainer for a lot of people, including myself. So we'll see where that goes. It's really interesting. One of the parts of the rumour that I didn't like was that they were apparently going to make it look a little bit more like a Chromecast, which I don't want. I want a little block, essentially. That looks like an Apple TV should. Last year, when Apple released the new iPads, one of the things that confused me the most was that they kept on the iPad 2. It has a 30-pin connector. By that point, it was 2.5 years old, so it was a really old model. It was slow, it doesn't cope with iOS 7 very well, and it's just old. Apple kept it on and got rid of the iPad 4, which had only been out a year. And that didn't make a lot of sense. And obviously now they changed their mind, because now the iPad 2 doesn't exist, and they just brought the iPad 4 back and it costs $399, which is a little bit more expensive than the iPad 2 was, but it's so much better. And I really hope that this is going to be something that works for Apple, and I guess it's more of a long-term thing, because when whatever comes out at the end of this year comes out, they want something as a backup that's actually going to offer a good experience running on iOS 8. Which I'm guessing will no longer be supported by the iPad 2. Last but not least, I wanted to give you a little roundup of the stuff that I saw at CU Exposed on Thursday. I was down in London. It was a trade show that's been launched by an English company called Computers Unlimited, and they have some really great accessory makers there and product makers there. They had people like 12 South, Griffin, To-Do, MakerBot with their 3D printers, and lots of really cool stuff. But I wanted to highlight maybe 3 or 4 of the ones that I really like to see, and I published posts on those on the website. You should definitely check those out. First of all, 12 South, again, one of my favourite accessory companies launching something that I really like. There's no surprise there. They are fantastic. There was the Rutledge Book for MacBook, which is kind of like their old leather book cases, but they've given it like this cherry sunburst effect like you would normally see on a guitar, and it is just stunning. And what I absolutely loved about it is that there's no one Rutledge book case that looks exactly like the other one. And that's because of the way the different cowhides react to the colours and the way they treat it. And because it's all done by hand, they just can't make them all look exactly the same. And that is really cool. So some of them will have like wrinkles in or scratches in. Other ones will have a slightly different tone of red because it's reacted differently with the hide. It's just really cool. And you should check those out. I think they cost about $100. But they are so worth it. They are fantastic. Another company that really excited me this year was Henge Docks. I've heard of them for the last couple of years, but I've never actually got my hands on one of their products. And the Henge Dock Gravitas is a universal dock made for iPhone, iPad, iPad mini, basically anything that Apple makes that's got iOS running on it will fit this Henge dock. But what I really loved was that it was so solid. It's made out of a zinc alloy, and so it's much heavier than aluminium, or aluminum. Sorry. And so when you go to grab your iPad or your iPhone out, it doesn't come off the desk. It doesn't require any fiddliness. It just comes out because the thing's so solid. And it's really useful too. It's got a groove where you can put your finger to use the home button. It's got little air channels so that the sound can go out of the speaker and go into the microphone without any disturbance. On the back, it's got a 3.5mm jack so you can put audio out into a speaker system. It's just fantastic. And they had some really cool MacBook docks that were just awesome, like robotic stuff that connects into your MacBook, and it was just so cool. Hey, that's been it from me. I am at TiP_Cam on Twitter. If you want to ask me any questions or give me any comments, leave your thoughts in the comments below. What I wanted to ask you this week, however, if you want to leave your thoughts on it, what do you think this year's big breakthrough product is going to be for Apple? Do you think the next iPhone is going to be the most exciting thing? Do you think the Apple TV, if it comes with games, is going to be the big deal? Or will we finally see this iWatch that people keep talking about? Let me know, and I will see you again next week. Don't mention the beard.